Hello, my name's Martin from Confyde. We are an alternative rock band from the UK. Very eclectic kind of sound, all everything from metal to jazz and just straight up alt rock and indie and funk and hip hop and singer songwriter, all kind of stuff, all blended into this mixing pot. We've got an EP coming up this Friday, sorry, called A Coward's Stitches, which is all about my mental health crisis from 2 years ago.
Very nice, mate. Thanks for joining us today, Martin.
It's a pleasure to be here, Kris. Thank you for having me. Always good to see your face and to chat with you.
Likewise, my friend. So, as you've mentioned, Confyde return with your new EP, A Coward Stitches, this Friday, February the 7th. So, how you feel about it?
I'm very excited, very very excited about it. It's definitely the most out there material I've done so far, and I think that's reflective of what I'm singing about. Quite a lot of the previous Confide material has had a bit of a political spin on it. These songs are a lot more personal, and I'm kind of bearing my soul to the world a little bit. And the initial song that we've put out already on YouTube has had an amazing response so far. So I'm very excited to see what people think of the whole release.
Nice. Now, you mentioned that your music does normally center around political components, but this one is personal, mate. So why now decide to do something personal? Like it's a big step.
I guess I've not completely shied away from personal topics. Like I write, I tend to write about what I feel very strongly about, and very often, things happening in the world and in my country or wherever else or in communities and stuff, is incredibly emotive and important to me and to the people who affect me, people who and affects people who I care about rather. So obviously I end up writing about those. But about 2 years ago, I went through some real sort of personal trauma and had to go through a lot of help for that. And it was important that I sort of, and instead that was the thing that was most pulling on me to write about. And it was also, the short version is there was a relationship breakdown, and that was kind of like the last crack in the dam, as it were, of everything else that was wrong with me that I had been sort of putting off and ignoring and pretending wasn't there. And that was obviously me repressing those things was obviously a contributing factor to the collapse of the relationship in the first place. And post breakup, ending up continuing to ignoring it, and then, just eventually having to seek help, like in counseling and therapy and stuff. And the sort of big single that we put out, which is an acoustic song, like 9 minute acoustic song, was is it's called Happy New Year, because one of the big sort of horrible realizations I had about myself that I had was just ignoring everything and just pretending everything was okay when it wasn't. It happened on New Year's Eve going into 2023. Well, I ran back into my ex-partner, and it was so clear, like it was this massive truth bomb that, so much of what I've been telling myself had been a total lie. And I just woke up on the 1st of January just absolutely hating myself. Like, what a way to start a new year. Like, and so, yeah, it was just something really, really important to write about in terms of healing myself and taking accountability and telling a story that I think some people will relate to. I think if people listen to this and realize that they're not alone in feeling that way and like being at war with themselves, it's a reminder that it's not always going to be like that. You're not alone, and it can get better.
Yeah. So did you find it was easier or harder to write the actual album because it was so personal? Like I'd like to say everything has been personally, but this one is at the heartstrings personal. Like was it easier or harder?
The writing process, I think, was about the same, to be honest. He was, so at the end of the day, it still comes from a place of emotion, and places, things that I feel very strongly about. It's just this time it happens to affect me in my personal life. I think the process of writing was easier. I was certainly a lot more free form this time, even though Confide's music is a bit all over the place anyway. I always like to think there's strong hooks and stuff, and it's still quite accessible when it needs to be. This time I kind of threw the rule book out a little bit. The A Coward Stitches, the title track, it kind of was intended to sound like what a mental health crisis feels like. That's why it kind of hops from one style to another so rapidly. And because when you're having those kinds of episodes, as it were, it feels like you can never really cling on to a single thought for very long. But what I will say is that performing the songs is a lot more difficult.
Yeah, okay.
It's especially Happy New Year, that main song at the end. in order for it to be authentic, I have to reach into that dark place that I was in 2 years ago, and it can be really, really tough to get through. There's a point towards the end of the song where, content warning, I briefly talk about the idea of not being any here anymore, and it's very, very tough to get through that part. And quite often I have to go away for a minute after I've finished the set just to have a second to myself. But yeah, that's the main difference, I think, is it's a lot more difficult to perform emotionally.
Now, why stop at just 3 songs, mate? Like, I know what you like, and that would have been the hardest part for you, just stopping at 3.
Well, it's interesting because I've been putting out ever since I sort of revived Confyde during the lockdowns way back in 2020. It's just been constant single releases plus a few bonus bits on Bandcamp for people who want more. This is the first official release with multiple songs on it in ages, and it's just because singles are often a more efficient way of building fan bases. And initially, this was just going to be that acoustic song on its own, Happy New Year. But then I realized that I can't, that's not going to form part of the set, is it? When I play with the band, I can't tell the whole band to go away while I sit there for 9 minutes on my own. I mean, when we do the launch this Saturday, I am going to play it on my own, but that's because we are launching the EP, and it's probably the only time I'm going to do it, unless we end up doing these like great big shows, like, you know, there's goes on for an hour. Yeah. But initially it was just going to be that song. And so when I thought about how can I make this into something the band can play, because it's very much hinged on the fact, you know, it's a very unconventional song. There's no verse, there's no chorus. It's just a stream of consciousness for 9 minutes with this like tapestry of acoustic guitar. I was like, and I saw what I did is I took elements from Happy New Year, like musical and lyrical elements, and then built a full band song that's only 4.5 minutes, and that's what A Coward Stitches is.
Okay.
So, and then it was just going to be those 2 songs, and then I felt the need to write the middle song, Once Broken, which is the more reflective, less complicated and more easier to digest song that is more a song about accountability and gratitude. Okay, I'm like, okay, this is the story, and it may just be an EP, but it is kind of a concept EP, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, I like lyrical and musical ideas repeat throughout, like come back in different parts of it throughout the 3 songs. So, and I suppose I'd say the third song is 8.5, 9 minutes long.
True.
So it's yeah.
Well, seeing there is only 3 songs on it, mate, and they are such important songs, I want to run through them individually so you can explain them a bit more and why you rate them, I guess, and how they help you. So the first one is the title track, A Coward Stitches.
Yeah, so this, as I mentioned, this is an incredibly like frenetic, chaotic song, and it was intended that way. I remember when I showed our drummer, Dan, the song, he was like, Martin, why? Why do you write this? But that was a deliberate choice. Like, it means it is quite technically difficult to perform, but it's meant to describe what being in mental health crisis actually feels like. We have a lot of singers, songwriters, and musicians and bands singing about the mental health crisis. It's obviously incredibly important. But how often does it actually sound like what it's like to be in that moment? So I drew a lot from the Dillinger Escape Plan with this song, who were like lots of discordant, like frenetic, like instrumentals and like slightly screamy vocals here, but then there's still like big melodic hooks. There's a really discordant, evil part of Happy New Year that I took out of that and made into like this math rock kind of riff for this song. There's like big drum. It's quite dramatic as well. My friend told me it was like if Dillinger Escape Plan were Queen's backing band. I was like, I'll take that.
I just got a mental image of that, and it wasn't very good.
Oh no! But it's got Confyde's first blast beat in it as well. Like the core, of course, has got this like blast beat, tremolo picking thing, like this kind of Cradle of Filth almost vibe, but it's got clean vocals over it. There's a big Opeth influence with the Discord. It's basically me talking about the kind of self-rationalizations I would tell to myself to pretend that everything was okay when it absolutely wasn't. Like the big hook in the song is called Closure's Not Real. Closure isn't real. It doesn't exist. I don't need closure. I could just move on with my life and not worry about anything, when actually that's absolutely not true. And you know, your feelings and your actions don't exist in isolation. They affect other people and the people who get close to you. And it's all about those kinds of lies we tell ourselves. And it's like, it's another big lie I told myself was like, okay, You know, if there was anything left to talk about, then we wouldn't be in this situation. So let's just not talk at all about anything. Just like, yeah. But yeah, it's very intense, very, very doesn't really let up. It never really resolves. And yeah, it's one of those ones that's definitely for the mosh pit for sure.
Cool. All right, the second one is Once Broken.
So it's almost meant to be the total opposite to Coward Stitches, whereas that it's got lots and lots of ideas and it's very frenetic all over the place and aggressive and discordant and horrible. Once Broken is much simpler. Most of it's only like 3 chords, and it's meant to be this more careful, considered track. I like to think it's like got a nice balance of sort of quiet, reflective contemplation, and then these big like this big anthemic chorus, and it's meant to be about the aftermath after you come through the other side and see things for how they really are, and you've made peace with yourself and the idea of what you've done wrong, and it's about seeking, let's say, sort of restitution and like amends for what you've done wrong, and acknowledging what you've done, and being grateful for that person still being in your life. Like my ex-girlfriend and I are friends again now, and I one of my biggest sort of panics was the idea that I would never get to see or hear from her ever again after everything that happened, and the fact that we can reconcile now means the world to me, and that's what this song is kind of about. And it's I think it's a lot of people so far from people who have heard it. People have been able to like listen to the album in advance on Bandcamp if they pay out a little bit, but, or order like the physical release, and that so far I think has been people's favorite so far. I think because it is more accessible and because it's got, I think it's quite rare for people to, not that rare, but like maybe less common for people to talk so explicitly in those terms about sort of accountability for past ills, if that makes sense.
Okay, then we'll move on to the third and final song, which is Happy New Year, with X's everywhere throughout, where the vowel should be.
Yes, exactly. And this was the first song I wrote, and it's like it's this 9-minute acoustic song, and it's meant to again, it kind of describes a mental health crisis, specifically in the terms of the conversations you have with yourself. My particular issue was that I was starting to find that as I became aware of everything that was wrong and finally realized that everything was not okay and that I was at fault, and say that final crack in the dam holding back everything that I was denying with the relationship breakdown came like absolutely, crashing through. That sort of, we've kind of got 2 voices. We've kind of got our main self, and then we've got that critical voice that's always like, it's basically can be the voice of our conscience, right? That's important, right? But if you ignore it for too long, when it finally breaks through, it's going to make you feel fucking, pardon my French, 1 centimeter high. And it's about that voice. It's basically the conversation between those 2 sides of me kind of fighting. By one side of me going, oh my God, like, why are you giving me such a hard time? This is so difficult. Like, I'm suffering too. The other guy going, it's your fault. It's your fault. Here's what you did wrong. Like, why do you think everything? How can you think of it? And it's heavily inspired by a song called Hi Ren by the artist Ren from Brighton in UK. It was a bit of a viral hit. It's also a 9-minute acoustic song. And it's had like 50 million views on YouTube now, something silly. And like when I saw that a piece of art like that, like a 10-minute song, had gone viral, and it's an incredibly powerful piece of work, and it's the same concept. Basically, I took the same concept that he'd done, and I even acknowledge him in the song. Like my bad side, he literally says just like, Ren called. He says he wants his song back. You're not original. You're not creative. You just fucking yeah. And the reason all the vowels are replaced with X's is because in 2023, I was still obviously dealing with the fallout of the breakup of the relationship, but then I also experienced another heartbreak. I experienced multiple bereavements as well. And when I was on tour with Chop Suey, I lost my voice. It was absolutely...
That's probably the worst out of all of them.
It was, mate, when you're going through emotional trauma, like when you're grieving for multiple things at once and you still have a bad relationship with yourself, and then not being able to sing, like that's literally my biggest joy that I reach to. And also part of it was my own fault again. Like it was like I got ill, I didn't look after myself on tour, and I ended up just absolutely torpedoing my voice, and we had to cancel the show, and the rest of the tour was absolute torture to get through. And like the first European short tour that we did, we had to get a stand-in singer for it, and it was the worst, mate. So taking the vowels out of Happy New Year is meant to be reflective of the fact that without vowels, words don't exist, right? You can't actually speak without vowels. And so I wasn't able to use my voice.
Right.
So if I put X's where the vowels are, you can't pronounce it.
Plus, you wouldn't have been able to yell at Andre when he gave you the shits either. That'd be the worst part about having no voice.
Like, Joycey was obviously frustrated with the situation. It's a long story and I won't go into it too much, but he has been incredibly supportive and reasonable throughout this whole ordeal. And I won't go into too much detail, but I am taking a break from Chop Suey this year. I don't know if you've seen. We are doing an amazing tour. We've just started a tribute to Slipknot as well.
I saw that.
But this year I've taken some time out. Like I really need to give myself a break from it. Like I've been doing it for a decade, 10 years of Chop Suey, and I feel like if anyone's earned a break, it's me. Yeah. And I think I need to go back to the System of a Down material and, you know, just give my mental health a chance and my voice a break from it all. And it's just been really nice to concentrate on the original music as well and have more time for my relationships and stuff. That's something else that put a strain on my last relationship, was being away on tour with Chop Suey all the time. Like it was...
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah. But I hope that explains that a little better.
Now, we sort of, you touched on it before, and you went through before all the styles of music you use, but like there's rock, there's extreme metal blast beats, there's acoustic, there's hip hop, there's flamenco guitar there in parts, there's groove. Like, how the hell do you get the balance right in the creative and recording process? Like, it'd be a nightmare, wouldn't it?
Good question. As I mentioned before, I think as I say, the original plan was just to have Happy New Year and A Coward Stitches, I think it was just going to be a double A side, just those two songs. And I think maybe that might have been a bit too much, like just too intense. I think having Once Broken in the middle is that really nice palate cleanser, because it is like, it was quite deliberately written as the opposite to A Coward Stitches, which has so many ideas all going on. It like changes all the time. It's really, I'm not gonna shy away from it. It's difficult to listen to, like, and that's the point. It's not meant to be like, oh, this isn't this. No, I'll put on A Coward Stitches just for an easy listen. No, not at all, mate. It's meant to make you uncomfortable because I'm singing about something really like emotionally difficult. I've done that quite a lot with a lot of things I've sung about in the past. I'm not here to make people feel comfortable. It's meant to be like making people reflect on themselves and on the world. But in any case, so Once Broken was quite deliberately written to be that like calm after the storm, that reflective, much simpler track. And I think one thing that does help with these like crazy genre changes, especially in that title track, is that a lot of the melodies and chord progressions and how they relate to each other, I wrote a lot of that just with me and an acoustic guitar to start with.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so even though it's got all these blast beats and stuff and like crazy genre changes, a lot of it was just written with me and an acoustic guitar, and then the riffs and stuff were layered on top afterwards. So I think that's how I'm able to make, at least I like to think that even if I write a really chaotic and out there song like A Coward Stitches, it still has a level of cohesiveness when it comes to like melodies and things that people can sing, because ultimately the vocal melodies and the hooks are what come first.
Yeah. Are you going to be releasing the lyrics, mate, so people sort of can digest it while they're listening to it?
Yes. So my distributor tends to upload my lyrics onto the various lyric sites, but the best place to go for that is going to be on Bandcamp. So Bandcamp, I've got all the lyrics all written out on there on the Confyde Bandcamp. So you can read through. I wanted to put the Happy New Year lyrics in the YouTube description, but there's too many lyrics and it broke. it broke the character count on the description box for YouTube, so that was a bit annoying. But yes, and also the obviously it is available on Bandcamp now, and on Bandcamp there are 3 extra bonus tracks as well. Like so there's like live versions of Scalper, which was the last single that you and I spoke about. Don't Lie Awake, which was the relaunch single, and then this acoustic version of Man Down. So like, if people actually pay me money on Bandcamp for the EP, they get these 3 extra tracks. Also, if they got, same goes if they actually ordered a CD.
Nice.
So that's why I was like sending people to Bandcamp, because if like you get more stuff there, and like, but it hits all the actual streaming services this Friday. And it's just the 3 main songs, and obviously the lyrics will be on the spot, like on Spotify. You know, you can have the lyrics, and it plays through as the song is going, so they'll be on there too.
Fantastic, mate. And have you got any shows coming up to launch it?
Yes, so this Saturday we are launching. So the EP hits on Friday. We have a launch show on Saturday night in Nottingham, upstairs at the Angel Microbrewery, a little venue called the Chapel, where we will be launching the EP. We'll play all 3 songs from it. Again, probably the only time that I'm going to play Happy New Year at a Confyde show. Then, along with a couple of other songs that people will already know. And then we're being supported by The Mechanist, Contemno, and Systems Fail. I'm actually going to make an announcement about some of the other shows who got booked in today. So we're also playing Leicester on Friday next week, on Valentine's Day.
Oh, nice.
At the Metal Monocle. We have 1st of March in Wellingborough at the Old England. We're also booked in for the Bear Cave in Bournemouth on the 7th of June, and then I'm just waiting on confirmation for 29th of August in Chelmsford at Radio City Social. And then, with any luck, we should be hopefully sorting a show in London in May, but I can't say much more about that one yet. But it should be, touch wood, a really killer venue. But I really want to go all in with Confyde. There's going to be loads more shows still announced. I've got quite a few fingers in the pie, so they still be around. I've got my fingers in many pies. So yeah, I've been working hard and trying to get us playing a lot of shows this year. It would be nice, I would love to get out to Europe, but let's one thing before, one thing at a time, I think. But yes, hopefully also release some more new music this year as well, since I'm not spread quite so thin.
Fantastic, Martin. Well, thanks very much for your time tonight, mate. Thanks for your honesty and openness with that too. It looked like it couldn't have been too easy at times, but A Coward Stitches is out on February the 7th. It's a bloody good listen, mate. Like, it's sort of, you can take it 2 ways. You can either listen to it and take it in for what it is, like about mental health, or you can listen to it as a body of work, and both ways it comes up trumps, mate. So well done.
Thank you so much, man. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.